Hey guys, just doing some quick analysis here on these currency pairs that we're looking at. But let's start off with our New Zealand JPY pair. All right, so we got into this trade, I believe it was Friday morning or late Thursday afternoon, and price has actually broken through support level as we had expected. So we got into a trade here with a stop loss above here, which is a good risk to reward trade. If I go to my larger time frame, we're looking at roughly 35 pips, 36 pips, or let's say 40 pips in risk to over 120 in profit. So we're going to hold this trade for a while and see exactly how it plays itself out. Now, the fact that price broke this support level, it simply means there's a possibility price might retrace back into this level of resistance. So don't be alarmed if price gets back into this level of resistance before it actually continues going downwards. Now, if it goes deeper into, let's say, the 78% retracement level, then there's a possibility that price might just continue going upwards. So we'll watch this trade for a while and see what happens. All right, so let's get into the rest of the currency pairs. All right, so the New Zealand dollar is first up. So we're looking at the New Zealand dollar, and what we're seeing right now is that price is actually at a critical support level, and we can see that from all the way in December of 2016, price had gotten to that level, then retested again in April 2017, and now we see price here again here in October. So this level basically should hold as a strong support level. Now let's head down to the smaller time frame and see what's really going on with the price action. All right, so we see price kind of consolidated here, and we're also noticing the divergence between the MACD and price itself, where price is trending downwards, but we have the MACD now trending upwards. So we could be looking for a long position at some point here. So let's head down to the 1 hour time frame. So on the 1 hour chart, we're seeing one of my typical patterns. We got price at that support level. We're seeing that level of consolidation. Price came down, retesting past resistance, becoming support, and therefore we're expecting the market to rally over the next few hours into tomorrow. So we can do one of two things, and that is A, we could look to take a trade at this point with a stop loss below these lows, where we'd be exiting the trade right above these areas of resistance. Now let's go back to the larger time frame. So on the larger time frame, we would be eyeing this area of resistance, which would be around 0.700. So that's a psychological level that we could be looking at. So back to a 1 hour time frame, we could be looking at this level here, 7,700. Let's go back to the forward chart. 7,700. So right here at previous level of resistance. Now we wouldn't go this far upwards because we do see some level of consolidation support here. However, if price does this, so if we decide to wait on the market and wait for price to break this level of resistance here, then on a pullback, which would create now the right shoulder of a head and shoulder pattern, or inverse head and shoulder pattern, then we could look to target that area of resistance. Now if we decide to get into the trade at this point where price currently is, then we would be looking at here as our take profit. So we could get into a trade here with a stop loss below this low, and we'd be exiting the trade right around here. So we would be looking to go long into 6,900, which is another psychological level in the market. So let's actually take a trade at this point. So let's go to all right, so I'm changing that to one lot size. So I'm going to enter the trade there, enter my stop loss, which is going to be around here. So that 30 pips in risk, and we're doing I want to do 60 pips in profit. So I'm going to go right here at the top. I'm stretching it a bit, but we'll be looking at around 1 to 2 risk to reward ratio. All right, so let's head on to number 3, which is the Aussie USD pair. All right, so on the Aussie USD, we are definitely in a downtrend. If you notice, price has actually broken all levels of support, and we can see from here, market was trending nicely to the upside, and then as price got to this level here, it created that double top pattern. We got a slight retest again, creating a triple top pattern, and then price eventually broke these support levels, and then guess what? It pushed back into resistance, becoming, sorry, push back into past support, which now becomes resistance. Now, price now finally broke this support level. So if we're looking to go, if we're looking for a trade, we'd be looking for a short trade at this level at around 77.50. So we want to see a pullback into 77.50 before actually looking to go short in the market. Now we'll keep an eye on this pair for price to get into that level, and then once that happens, then we'll be looking for bearish confirmation patterns on our smaller time frame. Right now we'll see on the 1 hour chart, price has price tends to be trending upwards, so we get a break of this resistance level here. We also got a break of this resistance level. Market is now hovering, so we do expect price to at least get into these levels before we'll go in short. So again, we're sitting and waiting for price to get into this level. Then we'll be looking for confirmation patterns before going short. Now, some of those confirmation patterns we could be looking at is something that looks like this, which would be a double top pattern, one of my favorites. And then on a break of this support level, then we would be looking to go short in the market. And there are other patterns that we'll be looking out for. So stay tuned on this currency pair. Now the Euro USD pair start with a daily chart, and we did mention from a few weeks back that price was likely to trend downwards, and we're expecting the market to fall all the way into these support levels in the near future. However, we are expecting a pullback before we decide to take a trade to go short. Now if we look at the forward time frame, we're seeing this strong trend to the downside, so this strong surge to the downside, which means this level here, let me highlight that, this level right here, this is what we call a weak leg in the market, and we're expecting that weak leg to be filled back into that level. So we're expecting price to drive back into this level of resistance before the market actually trends downwards. Now we could look for a trade to go long in the market. However, I would rather sit and wait for price to get into these levels, or wait until the market's a little bit more active before taking a trade to go long. Now another scenario is that we could see the market rally up back into, say, this level of resistance, then on a pullback, which I would expect it creating a double bottom pattern. Then once price breaks that resistance level here, then we could look to take a trade to go long back into this level of resistance before reversing the trade to go short. Now down to the 1 hour time frame, we're seeing the market still in a downtrend, and we see this strong move to the downside. Now, as I mentioned before, we expect the market to fill these areas because this is an area of price inefficiency. So we're expecting the market to push back into these levels before we actually resume a downtrend. Now, again, on a short-term basis, we're looking at this level here as previous resistance. So if we're going to go long on this pair, then first thing we want to do is we want to see price break that resistance level. Then again, on a pullback into a nice area of support, then we would look for an entry with our stop loss obviously below the lows, and we would take the trade back into these levels, where again we would reverse the trade back to the downside. So for this currency pair, it's basically wait and see what happens. Now moving over to the Aussie yen pair, Start with the daily chart. We are seeing that price is at that support level right here. We're now seeing a indecision candle. The MACD is typically going sideways, so that could indicate some sideways movement along these areas of support. However, if we head down to the smaller time frame, we can see that the beginning of a consolidation at these levels. Now, back to the 1 hour chart. Now, we are expecting price to rally from this support level. However, before we do that, we want to see price break a critical level of resistance on our smaller time frame, which is about this level here. So once price breaks out that level of resistance, then on a pullback, that would typically be our entry to go long with our stop loss below these levels and our take profit above here. So again, we're waiting for a breakout of this pattern before actually going long in the market. All right, so moving over to the US yen pair. So price is trending upwards nicely. We're at that critical level of resistance on our larger time frame. As you can see, the market is consolidating at this point. Price failed to go higher, even though it did spike out on Friday, and then it came back into just beneath this resistance level. So we are expecting the market to continue falling. On top of that, we're also seeing consolidation here, and we're seeing the market, we're seeing bearish divergence at this point. Now, heading down to the smaller time frame on a forward chart, we're seeing some nice price movement here where market is making some nice swings, rally up, pull back past resistance, becoming support, market rallying up, pull back past resistance, becoming support, market rallying up, and we can see some failure in price going higher at this point. So we're seeing that we're seeing that price is actually losing its momentum here. Now, if we decide to go short in the market, which I'm expecting to go short, then what I want to do is I want to see price breaking this support level first. So we're expecting this leg to push all the way downwards into that support level, and hopefully it could actually test this level of support also, and then on a pullback maybe into around 78% of this major swing, which would be here, and let's say price gets to this level, so a 78% swing of this leg, then we will look for an opportunity to go short into the market to retest these lows here. Now let's move down to the smaller time frame. All right, so on the smaller time frame, we're seeing the market kind of going sideways. It's a little bit jumbled on our 1 hour chart. However, we can expect the market to push back upwards into these resistance level before actually taking an attempt to go short again. So with this pair, I would want to stick to the 4 hour time frame. It's a little bit more manageable. So again, we want to wait for price to break these support levels, and then we would look for a short trade to go into these levels of support, and then that would be it. Now let's move over to the pound dollar. All right, so the pound dollar itself, and start with the daily chart. We're seeing that price is basically holding here at a support level, and we see the consolidation here over the last few days. Now let's head down to the smaller time frame. Now on the smaller time frame here, we're expecting the market to push back into this level of resistance, probably to create the right side of a head and shoulder pattern right around here, which would be perfect to get into a trade to go short into the market. But we can actually look for a long trade into this level of resistance if the risk to reward permits us. So right now we see the market breaking that level of resistance right here. Now, if we're going to go long in the market, before I do that, I want to see price push back into this level of support where I'm able to take my trade at that point with a tighten up stop loss, and profit would be basically all the way up in these levels of resistance. So at this point, I could set a buy limit order, or I could just simply wait until price gets into this level, take a trade, and then right here at 132.22 would be my exit, with let's say around 130.65 being my stop loss. So again, let me highlight this. So again, we're expecting price to pull back into this level of support, where we're looking to take a trade at that point to go long into the market, back into these past support becoming resistance level, with our stop loss just below these lows right here. And this would basically be somewhat of a 1 to 2.5 risk to reward, just judging from the eyes. So we'll see what happens. Let's see if we'll get that pullback into the market, and so we'll be able to get into that trade.